Hello and welcome to the Metabolic vlog. My name is Jason Lee and I'm inviting you to spend a couple minutes with me to talk about some things about health and wellness. So today's topic is kind of an interesting one. It's seasonal, I guess. So we're talking about Halloween because it's just approaching in the next week or so. And the topic I want to talk about today is a big one. It's actually about sugar, which is a very common thing, but more specifically high fructose corn syrup, which is a sugar that's found in so many kinds of things. People always know there's sugar in certain foods and whatnot, and when they look at them like, oh, is that sugar, that is sugar. But a lot of the time it's kind of confusing because what you'll see instead of sugar is you'll see words like corn sugar or corn syrup or fructose sugar or glucose syrup or things like that. And sometimes people look at that and like, well, glucose sounds sort of natural. It's a breakdown product of starches and carbohydrates and whatnot, so that should be okay, right? That seems quite natural. It's actually wrong because a lot of it is not natural sugars at all. They're from corn, but they're processed and they're more of a high fructose corn syrup. So instead of a sugar like this, which is more granular, what you're ending up with is with a product like this, which is high fructose corn syrup. Now this is interesting because this substance here looks very similar to maple syrup, which also looks kind of similar to honey. So some people confuse them because they look so similar. But a lot of industry and companies love high fructose corn syrup because it's cheap to make, very cheap to make. It's liquefied already, so it's easy to add into food. And you can add it to any kind of food. So even, for example, bread. This is like a healthy bread, they say. But when you look at the ingredients next to wheat, processed wheat being one of the main ingredients, the second ingredient is glucose fructose sugar. So that's the second ingredient in this bread. Jams and stuff like that, you'll see that in there as well as a main ingredient. Even things like Caesar dressing will have high fructose corn syrup as the second ingredient. So it's water, actually it's third. Water is the first, soybean is the second, and third is high fructose corn syrup. You also find as a sweetening agent in juices, things like that. Many cereals. I can go on and on with so many products. There's so many things out there with them. But one thing that it's in for sure are these things. So Halloween candy. That's why chocolate these days is so cheap. If you want to buy really good quality chocolate, I mean, a chocolate bar the size of your iPhone, for example, would be about $7, $8 for a good quality dark chocolate because cocoa is expensive. And they use a little bit of sugar in there, but it's basically cocoa and sugar, or cocoa butter and sugar. That's how you make good quality chocolate. But these chocolates have tons of ingredients in them, and the biggest sweetening agent is the high fructose corn syrup in them. And that's what makes them very sweet. That's why people seem to like them, and that's what also makes them very cheap. So you got to be very, very careful. Remember, the foods that you eat are 3 times more important for collecting weight than exercise alone. And consuming sugars like fructose and other kinds of things can spike your insulin levels, have a big effect on your pancreatic function. It can affect metabolism in general. So it also makes you have these craving cycles as well. So consuming high amounts of these things can shut off many hormones in the body. One of the biggest ones is growth hormone that affects growth and development. It affects your immune system function. It affects brain development and things like that. So for a lot of people, they say, well, I don't really have a lot of sugar, but they'll have it in so many other forms. Like they'll put sugar into their coffee or tea in the morning, they'll have it in their jam, they'll have it in their ketchup or their HP sauce or their sriracha sauce, whatever sauce they're using on their food. It's hidden in so many things. According to Robert Lustig, a medical practitioner, fructose is an isocaloric, but it's not isometabolic, which means that you can have the same amount of calories when you look at food for sugary things as opposed to things that have protein and starches, good quality starches or good quality fats in them. So some people look at things based upon calorie intake. They'll say, well, product A has 300 calories and product B has 300 calories, but product B is like a chocolate bar, product A is not. And you know what, I like the taste of this, so I'll have this. They're the same calories, who cares? But there's a big difference because the metabolic effect of the other food is very different than the sugary food. And it will burn differently in the body, have different effects on your hormone levels, have different effects on your craving levels and things like that. So that's why calorie counting doesn't necessarily work for weight loss or even just general health overall, because it doesn't measure how those calories are burned, it doesn't measure how the body metabolizes those calories, and doesn't measure if they're harmful or not to the body. So one of the conditions I'm seeing a lot in practice, and it's a very difficult one to get around because usually it's diagnosed with liver function testing or sometimes even liver biopsies, and that doesn't happen with every patient, is a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. This is an interesting condition because it's sort of come around in the last little while, I guess, because they didn't really have a condition like this before, because fatty liver disease was mainly considered a disease of people that took a lot of pharmaceutical medications, or they're drug abusers, or they just drink a lot of alcohol, so they call it more like alcoholic fatty liver disease. But what's happening now is you're starting to see a lot of people coming in with fatty liver disease that have never taken in alcohol, or their alcohol intake is very, very low, and their pharmaceutical intake is very low as well, if at all. You're even seeing it in children, which is quite scary. And one of the issues that causes non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is actually not fat, even though fatty is in the topic. And you can be very slim and have a completely fatty liver and not even realize it. And one of the biggest causes behind that is high fructose corn syrup, or just fructose in general. They're seeing that as a major, major culprit. And sadly enough, the sugar intake has increased so much over the last little while. Like I have said in some videos, the average intake of sugar back in the 1920s was like 10 pounds a year. And now it's between 150 to 180 pounds a year of sugar for each person. And it's just as high with kids as it is for adults. So it's a very scary concept, so you have to be careful about these things. One hormone I want to talk about is a hormone called glucagon-like peptide, or GLP-1, which is also produced when we eat. It's made in the pancreas, and it helps to regulate blood sugar intake. It helps to store energy. It helps to regulate pancreatic release of sugar. It also helps us with our appetite and appetite cycles. And when we take in foods that have massive amounts of sugar, or very fast release sugars like high fructose corn syrup, it throws this hormone off completely. So we get problems with satiety. So people are always hungry all the time, and they overeat, and they want to eat more, and they eat something, and they want to eat again and again and again. And remember, these things are not just found in candies, they're found in things people eat every day, like breads and stuff like that, or juices, or even other kinds of condiments and things that people use. So very, very hard on the body. They can also cause damage to the brain and other issues if the sugar levels remain high for a long time. Diabetes is one of those conditions that is on a rise, especially type 2 diabetes. They're predicting something like 35 million more people are going to be having it in the next 10 to 15 years, which is kind of like the population of Canada diabetic, which is a scary concept to me. So what can you do to protect yourself against these things? I guess the biggest thing is trying to avoid sugar intake as much as possible. Keep it very low. Watch what you eat. A lot of people will buy food and they don't really read the labels. They don't realize what's inside them. You have to really read and watch what's inside the food, so you know that you're eating the good stuff or the bad. Remember, when they do labels, it's always highest to lowest. So the most common compound is the first ingredient, and the least is the smallest ingredient. So if you see sugar in the top 5 ingredients, you know it's a big part of that particular food. So other foods you can eat to protect yourself against this are things like anthocyanidins, which are found in dark fruits, and dark, like berries, blackberries, things like that. They protect the body from the ill effects of sugar. They're designed actually to protect the fruit from sunlight, to keep it safe. So when you eat them, you get all the benefit of that as well into the body. So they're found like berries, blackberries, things like that in certain vegetables. Astaxanthin, which is found in fish and algae, also helps with insulin resistance issues. Ginger is a fantastic herb used in many things as a spice, actually used in many kinds of cooking. It lowers triglycerides, improves insulin resistance. Green tea, fantastic substitute for coffee or other kinds of tea, has great antioxidant potential, can also help the body protect itself from sugar imbalances. Quercetin, another flavonoid found in berries and colored fruits, and olive oil is very good for this. Same with resveratrol, found in nuts and other colored fruits. Spirulina or chlorella, which is found in algae, are fantastic. You can add these to smoothies, you can buy them in powder form and put into many fun kinds of foods, or just chlorophyll in general, just found in dark green leafy vegetables. Are also fantastic at regulating blood sugar, and they also support liver function too. One vitamin that's great for this as well is vitamin B6, or what they call pyridoxal 5-phosphate, which also goes along with magnesium, zinc, and potassium for maximum absorption. This vitamin can be found in many multivitamins or singular on its own, and it protects the blood against glycosylation, which is sugar binding to red blood cells, which is measured in what they call hemoglobin A1C. So what about Halloween? Because it's always an interesting topic, because people always come in like, well, Halloween is all about the sugar, right? I mean, it can be if you make it an essential part of Halloween, but really, I remember when I was a kid, my parents had issues with Halloween, not for the dressing up part, but just because they just said, that's way too much sugar, you don't need all that sugar. So my dad devised a plan which was kind of interesting. He would actually, I would trade in the candy, he'd weigh it, and the weight that the candy was would determine like how much Lego I would get, because as a kid, Lego was pretty much gold, and that was the only thing I really cared about. So I would get Lego out of that, while I would trade my candy in as well at the same time. But what's interesting is that I thought that was a cool thing my dad did, and I got to enjoy Halloween. But there's been a lot of actually movement around this, and there's actually a website that we'll put the link for, called the Switch Witch, And it's basically a site that you can go on and learn about this whole other way of trading in candy for certain types of things. So it can help kids get away from the fact that Halloween's all about candy and more about having fun with your friends, dressing up, going around door to door and stuff like that without having all the massive increase in sugar. Because the problem is some patients will say, well, I'll give my kids just one of these a day or two of them a day, and we'll ration it out. But the problem is most kids come back with 1 to 5 pounds of candy. So if you're rationing out a couple of these a day, they can go on for months. And the candy suppresses their immune function. That's something I see a lot in practice is kids getting sick, and especially around the October to January time, because you're eating Halloween candy pretty much from the end of October all the way until Christmas, and then it's Halloween candy, or not Halloween candy, but other candy then. And the sugar cycle just continues. So 1 teaspoon of sugar can drop the immune system for up to 3 to 5 hours. And in these candies alone, there's probably 2 to 3 tablespoons of sugar per candy bar, even the small ones. So you have to be kind of careful about that. So it's all about having a good time for Halloween. Enjoy yourself, dress up, have fun, but don't make this the priority. Make it about meeting your friends, hanging out, and dressing up. Hope you guys have a fantastic Halloween. And thanks a lot for listening. You can stay tuned for our next vlog next month. And if you have any questions, just give us a call at the clinic. Thank you. Take care. Happy Halloween.